Big news is circulating about the Cleveland Browns, and it involves a player many fans expected to be a key piece in the team's future. A new trade rumor has generated a lot of debate among fans, and, if it happens, could completely change the Browns' receiving core for the season. The question is, would Cleveland really consider trading one of its most important offensive weapons? Or is this just another preseason rumor that won't amount to anything? Let's analyze everything that's being said and what it could mean for the Browns' future. But first, click the like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what you still expect for this season. Let's go! A surprising trade rumor is starting to generate discussion around the Cleveland Browns, and the player at the center of it is Jerry Jeudy. According to a league-wide trade candidate projection, Jeudy was identified as the Browns player who could potentially be moved, and that immediately raises a major question about the direction of Cleveland's offense heading into the season. What makes this conversation so interesting is how dramatically Jeudy's situation has changed over the last 2 seasons. Not long ago, he was coming off a breakout campaign that placed him among the NFL leaders in receiving yards. He looked like the type of receiver Cleveland could build around, a player capable of carrying the passing game and becoming a true focal point of the offense. Then came a disappointing follow-up season that saw his production fall significantly, while concerns about drops continued to follow him. The debate inside the Browns fan base is easy to understand. On one side, trading Jeudy right now could mean selling low. His value is not as high as it was after his strong season, and moving a talented receiver immediately after a down year is rarely considered ideal business. On the other side, the frustration surrounding dropped passes has become impossible to ignore. When a receiver consistently leaves opportunities on the field, every drive becomes harder, every quarterback faces more pressure, and every offensive game plan becomes less reliable. Adding another layer to the discussion is the emergence of rookie receiver Denzel Boston. Throughout off-season practices and minicamp, reports have consistently highlighted Boston's impressive performance. Coaches and observers have praised his strong hands, route running, attention to detail, and commitment to improvement. The early reviews suggest Cleveland may have found a young receiver capable of contributing much sooner than expected. Boston's rise becomes even more important when looking at the overall receiver room. The Browns have invested heavily in young talent. New additions have created increased competition, and suddenly there are more candidates for meaningful offensive snaps than available opportunities. Every training camp practice becomes a battle for position, and every positive report about a younger player naturally increases speculation about veterans further up the depth chart. What stands out about Boston is not just the catches being made during off-season sessions. The reports describe a player obsessed with improving his craft. Coaches have pointed to his willingness to study, learn, and absorb coaching. For a rookie trying to earn trust quickly, those traits can be just as valuable as physical ability. Cleveland appears to believe they have found a player who is not satisfied simply making the roster, but wants to become a major contributor. At the same time, the Browns continue to publicly support Jeudy. Internally, he is still viewed as an important piece of the offense. There has been no indication from the organization that a trade is actively being pursued. In fact, comments from the team suggest they still believe in his ability to rebound and return to the form he displayed during his best stretches in Cleveland. That is why this rumor creates such an interesting crossroads. If Jeudy returns to his previous level, the Browns suddenly have a proven playmaker leading a much deeper receiver group. If the struggles continue while younger players keep impressing, the pressure to explore alternatives will only increase. The front office must determine whether last season was an exception or the beginning of a trend. Another factor that cannot be ignored is value. Cleveland originally acquired Jeudy at a reasonable cost, but determining his current market worth is much more complicated. Some believe a team desperate for receiving help could still be willing to part with a valuable draft pick because Jeudy has already demonstrated he can produce at a high level. Others believe his recent inconsistency would limit what the Browns could realistically receive in return. For now, the Browns appear focused on evaluating the talent already inside the building. The development of Denzel Boston, the growth of the younger receivers, and Jeudy's ability to bounce back will all play major roles in shaping the final roster picture. What started as a simple trade rumor has quickly evolved into a much larger conversation about the future of Cleveland's receiving core and who will ultimately lead it when the season begins. With Jeudy still viewed by many as the Browns' top receiver, but young talent pushing for bigger roles every day, do you believe Cleveland should keep trusting him as the centerpiece of the receiving room? Or would you seriously consider moving him if the right trade offer arrived? The biggest reason this rumor feels unlikely right now is because of how the Browns themselves are talking about Jerry Jeudy. Publicly, the organization continues to present him as a key piece of the offense. The coaching staff and front office understand that despite the frustrations, Jeudy remains one of the most experienced and talented receivers on the roster. When a team believes it can compete, moving a player who is still considered its top receiving option becomes a difficult decision to justify. At the same time, Cleveland's offseason has created a fascinating dynamic inside the receiver room. The competition level is much higher than it was a year ago. Young players are making noise, draft picks are earning attention, and every practice report seems to bring another encouraging update about the future of the position group. That naturally creates pressure on veterans because roster spots and targets are limited resources in the NFL. One of the names generating the most excitement is Denzel Boston. The early reports have consistently emphasized his ability to make difficult catches and provide a reliable target for quarterbacks. For a team that struggled with drops, hearing coaches and observers praise a young receiver's hands is exactly what fans want to hear. The clips coming out of off-season workouts show a player capable of winning contested catches and using his size to create advantages down the field. What makes Boston's emergence even more significant is that he is not the only young receiver pushing for opportunities. Cleveland has continued investing in the position, bringing in additional talent and creating a situation where several players are competing for meaningful roles. The organization clearly wants more explosiveness, more reliability, and more versatility from its passing attack than it received last season. That is where the Jeudy discussion becomes more complicated. If the Browns truly believe some of these younger receivers are ready to contribute immediately, then eventually difficult decisions will have to be made. However, there is a huge difference between believing in potential and relying on production. Jeudy has already shown he can perform at a high NFL level. The younger players may eventually reach that point, but projecting future success is never as simple as observing a strong minicamp. The Browns also have another reason to be patient. Jeudy is not entering a contract crisis. His deal still provides stability, meaning Cleveland is not under immediate pressure to move him before losing leverage. That flexibility allows the front office to evaluate how the receiver room develops over time instead of forcing a quick decision based on off-season speculation. If a trade were ever considered, the return would become a major factor. The belief around the discussion is that Jeudy could still attract interest because teams across the league are always searching for receiver help. Injuries happen every year. Contenders become desperate for offensive weapons, and proven talent often becomes more valuable once the season begins. That means Cleveland might actually receive stronger offers later, rather than immediately following a disappointing season. There is also another possibility that deserves attention. Rather than moving Jeudy for draft capital alone, Cleveland could potentially view him as part of a larger player-for-player deal. The Browns have shown a willingness to explore creative roster-building strategies, especially when younger talent with upside becomes available. If they ever moved Judy, it would not be surprising if the goal was to acquire another player they believed could fit their long-term vision. Ultimately, everything comes back to one simple question. Which version of Jerry Jeudy will show up this season? If the player who produced at a high level returns, then the Browns suddenly have a dangerous veteran leading a promising young receiver group. If the drops continue and the production remains inconsistent, the conversation surrounding his future will only grow louder as the season progresses. For now, Cleveland appears willing to bet on a bounce-back year while simultaneously developing the next generation of receivers behind him. That strategy may end up giving the Browns the best of both worlds. A proven veteran trying to re-establish himself and young playmakers pushing the entire room to improve. The training camp battles ahead could end up being some of the most important storylines of the offseason because they may determine not only who earns playing time, but also whether trade speculation surrounding Jeudy finally disappears or becomes even stronger. As the season approaches, Browns fans will be watching every practice report, every preseason snap, and every update from the receiver room. The competition is real, the expectations are high, and the pressure is on for several players to prove they belong in the team's future plans. One thing is certain: the battle for targets in Cleveland is far from settled. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and keep following for all the latest Browns news and analysis. And when you're done, click on the video appearing on your screen right now because the biggest Cleveland Browns updates and discussions are waiting for you there. The fastest news and the most important Browns stories, you'll find them right here first.